Ray Murphy era un joven al que mi padre había conocido en el Pacífico Sur. Luego Ray se convirtió en testaferro de mi padre y necesitábamos dinero como de costumbre cuando se vendió el guión y mi padre estaba esperando el dinero, pero no llegaba. Con que hizo averiguaciones y unas semanas después supo que Ray Murphy había muerto repentinamente.
Dear Mrs. Murphy, I want to tell you about your son and my relationship with him, and of my wife's sorrow and my own that he is no longer living. It has been my privilege since 1945 to be Ray's friend. It came about in the following manner. In June of 1945, a party of 6 or 7 war correspondents embarked from San Francisco by air on a 3-month tour of Pacific battle areas. Among the correspondents were Ray and I. During the invasion of Borneo, Ray and I went ashore in a landing craft between the first and second waves, dodging mortar fire as we sprinted across the sand. From a slit trench outside the governor's palace, Ray and I spotted a hilltop which we believed would give us a better view of what was going on and decided to climb it. When we finally reached the top of the hill, we found an abandoned AA gun that had been knocked out by naval fire, and no sign of a human being. We took what cover we could when we heard sounds of approaching troops, thinking the Japanese were returning. Moments later, a grim-looking Australian assault group with fixed bayonets appeared, expecting to meet the enemy. Well in advance of our armed forces, as it turned out, Ray and I had accidentally captured the hill. On the 4th day of the campaign, the outcome being beyond doubt, our group decided to return to Tawi Tawi. Once off, we retired into the main cabin. Somewhere off Japanese-occupied Celebes, the alarm signifying an air attack went off in the cabin. It could only mean that a Zero had risen from Celebes and was attacking. I was on the top bunk. I looked down. Ray was lying full length on the floor between 2 other men, his helmet on. He looked up at me, and although his face was, I dare say, as pale as my own, he smiled. And then he said, "Goodbye, Trumbo." I cannot quite describe my emotions at that moment. Perhaps I thought of my own son, then only 4. Perhaps I thought of my father, long dead. I certainly felt that a son, not my son, had chosen me from among that company as the one he wished to say goodbye to, and that a father, not his father, had responded. The fact, as it later turned out, that there was no Zero within 100 miles and no danger, that the whole incident was a ludicrous mistake of nerves on the part of the crew, in no way diminishes my memory of that moment, nor the surge of love I felt for your son. We managed to correspond intermittently ever since. Ray went to India and later published his first novel. I went before the House Committee on Un-American Activities and later served my first term in the penitentiary. I was, at that time, as I am now, blacklisted by motion pictures, publishers, and magazines. It was typical of his generous nature that he offered to collaborate with me for motion pictures and to put his name alone to the product of our mutual endeavors. It was typical of my need that I accepted. During our last visits, in a moment of temporary depression common to young men who are both sensitive and intelligent beyond their years, Ray told me that he thought he believed in nothing. He felt himself a complete cynic. It was, of course, not true. A day or 2 later, when he brought a copy of my novel, Johnny Got His Gun, for me to inscribe, I wrote in it what I really felt about him and his future. He telephoned me the next day to thank me. He said, "I hope I can live up to it." I should have told him then, and now have only you to tell, that he already had.